Blacking out from a Friday to a Sunday and remembering nothing in between was considered as fun. Staying up until 2, 3, 4 a.m. for no other reason than to get another buzz, that was fun. Laying up with any old body that was a nobody to me just so I could feel like a somebody, that was considered as fun. And it's only at this stage of my life where I fully and finally accepted that I'm not just okay with being considered as boring, but I prefer what most would consider as boring. Because boring is taking care of myself. Boring is taking care of my well-being. Boring is productivity. Boring is edifying my life experience. Boring is fulfillment as opposed to this continuous seeking of pleasure. And, there was a realization that I had earlier on in my life where I saw that I was doing these things that I considered as fun for no other reason than escapism and validation, right? On one side, I was looking to escape my day-to-day life. I was looking to escape those uncomfortable feelings and emotions that I experienced on a day-to-day that I didn't know what to do with, right? I didn't know about inner work or shadow work or, cultivating a sense of self-worth or self-love. I didn't know any of those things. All I knew was I was haunted and tormented by these thoughts and emotions, and I needed to get rid of them. So I found a means of escape, and I found it through quote unquote fun, right? Instant gratification and pleasure. On the other side, I was looking for validation. I wanted to be accepted. Right? I was a 10-year-old kid or 9-year-old kid who moved from Africa to the United States. And ever since I was looking to be accepted. So I changed everything about me. I stopped doing the things that I actually love to do, like acting, being on stage, being in plays, writing plays, etc. And I transitioned into, what I believe the culture wanted from me, right? Playing sports, playing basketball. Then that transitioned into a party lifestyle. Because frankly, the sports wasn't exactly made for me. I mean, yes, I had the athletic gene, but I wasn't exactly built at a basketball stature. And so I found, other means of validating myself in the eyes of other people. I became a dope boy, right? I became hooked to the very same substances that I was pushing. I became an individual who involved himself in anything that would get me attention from those around me and have them see me or perceive me as quote unquote cool. And so I became that kid who would show up to every party, right? I became that kid who was known as, that kid. And it gave me the attention and the validation that I was seeking, not understanding that in the process, I was destroying my very own life, all in the pursuit of attention. And I know that I'm not alone in this. I know that, I'm not a lonely island. I'm not a special case. I know that most of us will go out of our way in order for other people to perceive us a certain way, in order to be liked. Maybe for you, it wasn't being the party kid. Maybe for you, it was, being accepted into that athletic space or into, a different social group. Maybe it was a robotics team. I don't know what it is. But I know that for most of us, when we get into this mentality or this belief system. But I know that for most of us, when we have this perception of what is fun and what is not, it's been programmed and conditioned into us. We've been taught that, clubbing, partying, going out and getting wasted, laying up with strangers. We've been told that this is what's going to give you that pleasure, that sense of fulfillment that we're seeking, that we most times can't find in our everyday lives. And I realized for me, that the reason I could not find that fulfillment in my life is because I was living inauthentically. I was not living my own life, but instead the life I believed other people needed me to live. And so I drowned myself in substances. I drowned myself in experiences that would never edify my life, right? I wasn't filling myself up with these type of fluids. I was filling myself up with a fluid that I believed would get me accepted into certain social groups. And it's ironic and it's sometimes heartbreaking that when I finally became sober, when I let go of that entire lifestyle from, around the age of 19, just before I turned 20, that I was questioned more when I became sober than when I was not. Like when I was completely wasted, intoxicated on a day-to-day basis, I was not questioned. The people around me preferred me that way. But once I became sober, now I was in question. Now people didn't understand my motives. Now people were looking to pressure me back into that lifestyle simply because they were miserable, right? Misery truly does love company. They couldn't identify with the new version of who I was. They couldn't identify with the new script that I had written for myself. And again, this is a painful experience for most of us. So many of us will stay in a lifestyle simply because we want other people's approval. We will stay in that lifestyle simply because we want other people to see us in a certain way. We want to be accepted, right? And I know, again, some of us who are outliers, well, I never cared about acceptance. It's not that we don't care about it. It's just sometimes we tell ourselves, well, I'm just not going to be accepted. And so we become the exact opposite, right? We look to ostracize ourselves. And I don't think that's the answer either. I don't think to be a rebel without a cause is going to be the answer either. Because at the end of the day, we're not dealing with that core issue of worthiness. We're not dealing with that core trauma or the core wound that has us believing that we're not good enough in and of ourselves, that we need the validation or approval of another person, that we need the acceptance of those around us. And so I found myself buying into this cultural norm of quote unquote fun in order to drown myself. I found myself in a place where I had to do something to get myself into a frame of living, into a mind state, into a heart space where I knew that I could guarantee that those around me would see me as one of them. Because being me, being authentically who I am, right? Being the kid who, is creating this sort of content and speaking on these sort of subject matters and writing these sort of books and writing screenplays and all these type of things. I didn't know if that person would find belonging in any group because that person is an individual. But I knew that if I wrap myself up in what we called fun, then surely enough, I would be quote unquote accepted. And again, the aspect of escapism, finding a means of feeling as if my life has some sense of meaning, some sense of purpose. When I don't find that in my day-to-day living, I then go look for it in ways that are ungrounded. I go looking for it in ways that have no foundation. The ways in which I look for it are fleeting. I look for it in the pursuit of pleasure. I look for it in the pursuit of, laying up next to another body because it will never satisfy. And it's only at the point where I allowed myself to accept that these things are never going to fulfill me that I truly got my life back. And that's when I accepted that this quote unquote message of boring, right? Because it's not just us. It's not just all in our head, right? Media pushes this message. Like since we're kids, we've been seeing movies, we've been seeing TV shows, we've been listening to music that told us what fun was. We have been indoctrinated into believing that fun is a series or a certain way of life, right? A series of events, a series of activities. If you do this, that, and the third, then you're living a fun life, right? Even when we were in school, I remember we used to say, oh, like, do you have a life to somebody who was always studying or, doing something that wasn't in this quote unquote hyper social space, which I actually don't think is very social at all. I don't think, being blacked out and having conversation and communication is very social. You don't even remember half of what happened. So how is that social? I believe social is about connection and authentic connection, right? I'm not looking to judge anybody. I'm not here to shame anybody. You might find yourself on a bottle every evening or every morning or whatever it may be. Maybe that's your way of coping right now. I understand. Trust me, it's a healing process and it is a journey, right? It is a step-by-step process that we have to come to ourselves. So I'm not looking to judge anybody. I'm not looking to shame, but there is truth in when we're escaping, when we're finding these vehicles of leaving our own life to create this fantasy for ourselves, we're not living in truth. We're not experiencing a real life. The relationships that we have are not real relationships. Like I remember, when I was an addict, I didn't have real relationships. I just had addictions to the substances and addictions to the people who were also involved in those same substances. I had people who were enablers as I was an enabler for those individuals. We weren't truly in relationship. We were simply seeking a substance or we were seeking a high that would get us out of our everyday living. We were seeking a form of escapism. And so, again, I had to accept that not only was I looking for, a sense of acceptance through what I was doing, which is a powerful motivator. Like most of us undermine just how powerful acceptance or the need for acceptance can truly be. We will literally give our entire life up just so people can approve of us, can accept us, right? We will abandon our entire purpose in life just so we can have other people validate us. Then on the other side, escaping, creating a life for myself that was my own life would also mean me having to let go of every single conditioning, every single story, every single program belief system that told me that I was not worthy, that I was not deserving, right? That I could do something. Like, so many of us have been conditioned to believe that the very thing we're here to do in life, the very thing that we love the most, that we cannot do, that we're not the person to do it. Example, if you were born to be an actor and you told your parents since you were a child that you're going to be on TV, etc., the first message you probably got was, you need to be more realistic. You need to find something that, is going to make you a living, etc. These are the types of messages that you received. And so you started to believe that maybe they believe I'm not good enough because they're watching these actors on TV and surely they must believe they're good enough. So there must be something wrong with me. I'm not good enough to do the thing that I want to do. And so we start to settle through life. We start to do things that we hate. And then we find ourselves, miserable. We find ourselves unfulfilled, and we find ourselves escaping through a multitude of different formats. We find ourselves partying, clubbing, different type of drugs. And the drug might not just be a physical substance. It might be your social media addiction. It might be your shopping addiction. It might be your relationship addiction. We find different vehicles in order for us to escape. And we label it as fun so we can basically validate it to ourselves, right? If we put a title of fun, then we can get away with doing it without feeling a deep sense of regret or a deep sense of shame about it, right? Again, sleeping around. Well, it's just me having fun. We can validate the fact that we're hiding that feeling of inadequacy. We just label it in a certain way, and now we can justify it. And instead of living this life of justifying the things that are destroying us at the core, we have to start stepping into a truly healed space, back into a space of wholeness. Like, I believe the healing journey is nothing more than remembering that we are whole, remembering that we are adequate, remembering that we're enough. I believe that's the journey. We're getting there. But at first, we have to acknowledge what it is that we're running from or what it is that we're running towards. And why it is that we're living in such a way. Why do I care what people think about me? Why do I care about the acceptance and the approval of others? Why do I need to run from my life? What is it that I'm running from? What is it that I'm not doing with my life that I truly want to be doing? What would truly fulfill me? And you'll realize that a multitude of these things are already within you. The answers are there. It's just we've been running from those answers. We've been seeking them outside of ourselves. And oftentimes it's not until something drastic happens that we finally have to face ourselves. So in conclusion, I'm okay with being boring. How about you?